time to come in the room, everyone, please. Martin, others. We're going to start in exactly 3 minutes. We have a lovely program ahead for you. In between, we will take some breaks. At that time, feel free to help yourself to there's Route 66, a Panjam restaurant's making some nice food. There are free kombuchas, cold kombuchas for you if you'd like. Refresh yourself. It's going to be a long and full evening. We're going to start with a little bit of literature as well as an address by one of our delegates. And then we'll be seeing the debut of Dule Rocco, one of the more exciting, interesting young men in a few minutes. And then, of course, we have the legend, Braz Gonçalves, in a three-generational quintet, which is going to sing for us. The third generation is currently sitting in the audience. So in just a couple of minutes, we'll begin. So I've been doing this the last couple of days. How many people, besides who came in here for the other performances, how many people have been in this room before? You have, but you were here before. Very few other people have. You have. I'd like you to turn your attention all the way to the back. Maxi, can you stand up? Maxi is the best. Maxi is a very fine musician. One day he will also be playing in this festival, but he's interesting because Maxi started his life in this room. This is the former maternity ward of the Old Goa Medical College. Now, Old Goa Medical College. Maxi, happy birthday, new birthday. So this is the maternity ward in the Old Goa Medical College, and and there's the lady who was also here. Congratulations, ma'am. I'm a big fan of your son. So this is the Old Goa Medical College. Even those of us who have lived in Goa for years, even those of us who are Goans and have lived, Prahlad, for instance, is a born and bred Panjamite, but he's only come here when serendipity used this room once, right? So a very interesting room, and over the last 3 days, thanks to one young man who I must give a shout out to. Actually, Michael Praveen here and Ian De Noronha, who's another young man, were press ganged by me, and they've turned this into a wonderful venue. So a big hand, please, for Michael and to. So this hall, obviously being a maternity ward, had heard certain kinds of sounds for 100 years. I don't want to repeat all of them. I have been present for the births of all three of my children, and generally it's a particular set of sounds. But what's amazing about the last 3 days is we've heard different sounds altogether. Sonia, she's taught the entire audience here how to sing a classic Goan Mando. And then we went, all of us, at 10 o'clock at night, it was the end of a late evening, we went and arrayed ourselves around the staircase, and all of us sang the Mando. And the sound absolutely changed the vibe in this building, I think, hopefully forever. I'm so pleased. Many of our delegates from all over India embraced it. Sujata Gidla here was a particular highlight for me. She's come from New York. She's written an amazing book called Ants Among Elephants, a must-read book. Sujata really took to the Fado with great gusto, and I think I'm looking forward to hearing a version from New York. I must also say Ajay Kamalakaran, who I did not expect to fall in love with the Fado. Ajay Kamalakaran is also a very fine writer. He's a conduit between India and Russia. Very interesting man. He fell so much in love with the Fado. I could see the rapport he was having, and he actually posted, and I think sincerely, that he intends on having Sonia become his teacher, because the future of Fado may lie in the hands of Ajay Kamalakaran. Big hand for Ajay Kamalakaran. God bless you, Ajay. Someone's got to do it. And then yesterday, again, we had amazing moment for me, and one of the highlights of my life, I think, on the day before the president was coming. Akhu of Imphal Talkies. I'm sure this crowd doesn't know probably who Akhu or Imphal Talkies are. You should know. We also have another person from Imphal, Martin Tokchom, who runs a very fine bookshop there, Ukiyo Bookshop. They both came. So Akhu gave one amazing, highly memorable concert, and And this festival, as you guys probably know by now, I'll tell you a little bit more about him, is about a man of science and a man of great rationality who took to the arts, and that is also Aku, because Aku is a PhD in physics and has done postdoctoral work, but writes some of the most vital songs of our time in the theme of liberty and light, and he performed here. And then Daniel Fernandez made us all laugh, and then Lou Majau, who is also in the audience, shook the walls and made us all sing along, and we shook the walls with real rock and roll as only Lou Majau can do, age 75. So God bless him. So different sounds. Today we're bringing literature into the house for the first time. And then we're ending in the best way possible, in a moment of great gratitude for all of us coming out of the pandemic, with Brás Gonçalves on his own. He's 88 years old, on his own return from a triumphant visit to Europe, where he played at the top club in Lisbon, and it was a very big deal. So a little bit about Francisco Luis Gomes. He is a truly great Indian, thinker of national thought, an economist of great repute, a medical man who made his name first in this building, and then went on into the most ferocious kind of halls. He represented Goa in the Lisbon Parliament in a time of slavery, and he spoke against slavery. And when the other Portuguese deputies there told him, "You don't understand, this is the way of the world. Look at Britain," he was like, "Britain is not any example to emulate, and this is a sin." And he said, in India, we have many problems. He mentions caste, but we don't do chattel slavery, and you guys are the ones who are wrong. Imagine the guts it took for a man to do that at that time. He spoke against colonialism through his economic writings, and at that time he was considered a contemporary of John Stuart Mill and other major economists of the day. In many ways, he is the forerunner of Indian economic thought, in a line that runs directly from Francisco Luis Gomes to Baba Saheb Ambedkar, and then to this minute. If you draw that line, you kind of understand what this festival is about. And it has had tremendous expression. I'm so grateful for all of you who've come, some of the best people in the country, who I would have chosen out of a list of 1,000 or 1,000,000 to be here. They've come, and I'm so grateful for that. So now we're going to start with a little bit of literature. I'm not going to introduce them both, but first with one of my new favorite poets. His name is Chandra Mohan S. I've been reading his work for the last 3 weeks or so, kind of in tandem with Francisco Luis Gomes, whose writings are amazing, particularly his speeches in Parliament. And Chandra Mohan has become one of my favorite poets in a very short time. And he writes in English, and it's a language that he deploys in a way that is all his own, and I'm so looking forward to that. So Chandra Mohan's going to read a little bit from his book. And then as a valedictory address, I am so privileged and proud to have my friend, Patricia Mukim from the Northeast, who is an indomitable force. She is an absolute inspiration to me. I am allowed to call her Kong, which is Patricia Mukim, ladies and gentlemen. She is a Padma Shri Award winner. She is an indomitable journalist and a force for independent thinking in ways that will defy every cliche you might have in your mind. I consider her a role model. I'm so pleased she's been here for the festival, and now she's going to deliver a valedictory. So without further ado, Chandra Mohan S., Love After Bevel.
Thank you so much for this, wonderful opportunity. So I hail from Kerala. I'm a poet writing in English. So I proudly identify as a Dalit poet writing in English. So I'm so happy to, to read here. So, I was so happy to know that just 2 days back, it was the 50th anniversary of Dalit Panthers. Folks in Bombay know it better. So we in Kerala too have a chapter of Dalit Panthers, and we look up to the Dalit Panther movement with so much as a source of inspiration, as a source of light. Also, the Dalit Panthers draw their inspiration from the Black Panthers in America. So there is a very famous quote, a very famous saying that Dalit Panthers are the last chapter of the Black Panthers. Dalit Panthers are the last chapter of the Black Panthers. I sincerely do not know whom this quote is attributed to, but it's so true. Okay? So, this is my eulogy to the Dalit Panthers. So, fortunately, my next collection of poems is titled Learning from the Panthers. So, it's an excerpt from there, from a forthcoming book. The Panther brothers, marching shoulder to shoulder, like alphabets of the same vernacular, bound together with no vices. The Panther brothers, like a sun sliding off the eclipse, new rays on the dark recesses of history, a mustache sprouting on barren land. The Panther brothers, they are one people, one language, one history, one culture. The raised fist, like the arms of a clock at noon. The raised fist, like the arms of a clock at noon, turn the wheel of time, hoisting the blue flag. The Panther brothers, stomping their feet like an earthquake from beneath, the voice the silence roots. The Panther brothers, the voice under their black skin, long like the river Nile, ancient like the river Indus, the same veins as a curly-haired Buddha. Thank you. So this is a slightly longer poem. So this is titled "Learning from the Panthers." So this poem uses the trope of the animal panther, also certain aspects of the protest. So does anyone know why the Black Panthers chose panther as their the animal that represents their spirit? So the reason I'm told is that panther attacks only in self-defense. Only when pushed to a corner. Like it doesn't attack for the sheer show of strength or whatever. So the belief is that panthers attack only when they're pushed to the corner or only in self-defense. So the Black Panthers who had guns and like very physically able young men, protecting their community, their neighborhood, so they wouldn't open a fire for no reason. It's like for self-defense. So that's why panthers. Learning from the panthers. Section 1. Panthers aren't extinct. They prowl in the dense jungles. They are disciplined men. They upset the natural order of things. Section 2. Slogans rise up, fly sky high, like the blue flag of universal brotherhood. The panther prowls with a gait like a bird in flight, swift. The panther prowls with a gait like a bird in flight, swift. They protect their own kind, always monopolize a local cliff to get a wide view of the surroundings, like birds flying ahead of the flock. The panthers marched, had an anthem, like an epic which would never run dry, with tributaries branching out, like blood coursing veins of their hopes, like letters of the same vernacular with different phonetics. Wild cats roar, reclaiming a lost world, a spine around which the bipedal panther stood erect with its gaze beyond the horizons. I will not let anyone else pronounce my name. I'll pronounce my name with the right intonation, enunciation. They rework or crawl up to the fortresses of lexicons, new coastlines for myths, suddenly veering off course. The panthers sharpen the claws on the barks of trees, descending down to its rings, documenting the duel. We didn't like our names. We used to refer to ourselves in the third person. Our name was a spine around which our worlds hinge. Barren rocks amidst dense foliage of shrubs are receptacles of history. Approach them with caution. A panther might explode from the shrubs. The panthers march ahead of us. We foray into space between pages into the time's crevasse, not to trip on the shadow lines of yesteryear monuments. Cops trail and tag our population, fuel internal feuds, force our extinction, blow out the flame inside us. We write poems. People have the right to bear arms. Our crops are being ambushed by pigs. Swimming in an alien language is seeing ourselves or seeking our soul in the deep sea's mirrors. The last section. The panthers always have their one paw at the throat of the empire, fluttering stars and stripes. The panthers always have their one paw at the throat of the empire, fluttering stars and stripes. So I'll finish my reading with a poem, which is like it's like my engagement with Islamophobia. Okay, so this poem was composed when France banned the attire burkini. Okay, so once upon a time France banned the attire of burkini, and it's like my protest against Islamophobia. So there is a quote like this: I created the burkini to give women freedom, not to take it away. Ahida Saniti. I created the burkini to give women freedom, not to take it away. So the Ahida Saniti is the designer who designed burkini. Okay, so the poem is titled 13 Ways of Looking at a Black Burkini. 13, so it's obviously it's a rewriting of the same famous Wallace Stevens poem. 13 Ways of Looking at a Black Burkini. Burkini is a language terrifying those ignorant of its text. Burkini is a language terrifying those ignorant of its text. Cops patrol her tan lines like dams patrol rivers flowing above danger marks. All you need is in that bag. Change into a garment more palatable for the cops in uniform. Some garments cling too close to your surname, like a metaphor, too loud for good poetry. Some garments cling too close to your surname, like a metaphor, too loud for good poetry. Sea surfing can be tiring, like an infinite ebb and flow of a questionnaire. Batting an eyelid can be a tad too immodest. Tether yourself close to the beach. Do not serve too deep into the ocean. Never self-intersect in circles of knots and tangles. Bruises sustained from frisking metamorphose into festering wounds. Gangrene could gnaw at your surname. Erase your footprints from the sands. Waves of time rarely wash the footprints of a scuffle. Prolonged scuffle can bury us all in a deep hole. Do you remember the first corpse the sea sucked off a turbulent beach? The sea spat it out after 3 days of frisking. Do you remember the corpse the sea sucked off a turbulent beach? The sea spat it out after 3 days of frisking. The footprints of a scuffle implicates you from shore to shore, blowing up all bridges between you and anyone. During this conversation, some territory has been ceded across the tan lines of your body. Your body stripped off the garment remains an evacuated language. Can a language be a scarecrow? The last section. History will catch up with you in your rear view mirror, even if you're full throttle in your pursuit of happiness. History will catch up with you in your rear view mirror, even if you're full throttle in your pursuit of happiness. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. So I have this particular poem. This poem is so typical of Kerala. I hail from Kerala. So what is important in Kerala is, suppose like someone asks you your name, right? Suppose if you utter your full name. So a lot of aspects of your identity are always revealed in that name. So there is an iconic short story by a famous writer, N.S. Madhavan. In that, there is this character will ask another character, how will you prove that you are Indian? So she'll say, I'll just say my name. So my name is Namita Kokle. So it will be like, my caste, my whatever. All these you can just, decipher from my name. But in Kerala, names have, sometimes there are no surnames. For example, my name is Chandramohan. So like the chief minister is not, the name of the chief minister is Pinarayi Vijayan. So there is no like surname. So people will be like, okay, so what does that mean? People are like predatory, they want to know like, how to talk to you if you are not, there is this identity thing. So this poem is essentially about that. So this poem uses the trope of cricket. So there is this very important observation by Ashish Nandi. The quote is this: cricket is an Indian sport accidentally discovered by the British. Cricket is an Indian sport accidentally invented by the British. Okay? So the poem goes, a local train conversation. Okay? The poem is a local train conversation. As the station moves, I glance at the elderly man seated opposite me, still like an inanimate cog in a wheel. His religious mark between his eyebrows. One-eyed searchlight, patrolling for moonlight indiscretions down the edges as the train furrows through a dimly lit tunnel. His insidious queries, insist with Swiss knife tongue, are like a handshake prolonged to probe the pulse of my wrist. He tries assessing me with an in-swinger first. What's your full name? Then he tries an outswinger that seems a lot, like Wasim Akram. He tries an outswinger that seems a lot. What's your father's name? By this time, he loses his nerve and tries on a swift Yorker. What's your caste? Thank you. Thank you so much.
Chandramohan S., ladies and gentlemen. The wonderful Chandramohan S. I've already described her several times, and actually she definitely doesn't need an introduction from me. Please, Patricia Mukim, who won the Padma Shri 20-odd years ago. She's a journalist, an editor, a social activist. Would you like a chair? Okay. And a great role model to me. Thank you so much for being here.
Okay. Good evening, friends. And it's been such a great pleasure to be here because I needed this break. My state is passing through some very turbulent times. Corruption. The state was constructing a state assembly, which was burned 21 years ago. And then they wanted to put a dome, which is a very alien structure in my state of Meghalaya. So they put up that dome, and that dome came crashing down on the 24th of May. So, and then they acted inside that building, and we touched the pillars. They all came apart. They were full of sand. So they couldn't take the weight of that dome. And you know where that dome came from? All the way from Tamil Nadu. And it weighed 70 tons. So obviously that building couldn't take that dome. So I don't know now when we're going to get our next assembly building. We are operating from some auditorium like this for the moment. So thank you, Vivek. And this Festival of Liberty and Light has been inspired by Francisco Luis Gomes. Please don't mind, I'm carrying this little paper because 3 days we've been bombarded with the best thoughts, and that can really shake you up quite a bit. So I might forget a few things. That's why I'm carrying this notepad. So Francisco Luis Gomes' philosophy was based on the French Revolution: liberty, equality, fraternity. And I think it is important to remind ourselves of these three important pillars of human life and human living. Because without these three pillars, we are just sort of going about our daily chores and unable to speak our minds. I've been dragged to the Supreme Court for just speaking my mind on Facebook and for saying something that I was very concerned about the violence that continues and nobody's ever arrested. That was since 1979. So this space is a very liberating space. I wish we had this kind of space in Shillong, which we don't, because we have to be very careful, especially if the government is funding it, then, you know, everything will be cut to size. And this gentleman, I had a glimpse at the book about Francisco Luis Gomes. He combines so many things in his persona: writer, physician, historian, economist, political scientist, and above all, a member of parliament in Portugal, where he really fought for the freedom of his people here. And he also wrote this book, Os Brahmins, which is about caste discrimination. Today, I had tears listening to Siddesh Gautam. It was heart-wrenching, and I'm asking myself, why do we still have to have this in the 21st century? Why must we look at somebody with a different, you know, perception and indignation and subject them to indignities of the most horrible kinds? But it is there, and we are not, I think, protesting enough. I don't think we are protesting enough in this country. We've learned to take things in their stride, including in my own state with all the corruption. We've just become so banal. And Francisco Luis Gomes writes, I was born in India, the cradle of poetry, philosophy, history, and everything free. And then again, I'll quote him. He says, when he looks at what's happening around him, he says, entombing in a shell of hatred are poetry, philosophy, and history. I think those are very strong words which all of us, but especially Goans, have to be thinking about. And Vivek had told you about, you know, the Portuguese telling him that they have no right to be represented in the Portuguese parliament. And then he said, and the argument is because England doesn't allow its, you know, allow its colonized people to be represented in the British Parliament. So for me, freedom means, or liberty means, the ability to just speak my mind. Why do I have to self-censor myself? Why do I have to think many times before I put word into writing? But that is what has happened, and I think we are not producing the best from ourselves, about ourselves, on ourselves. We are really trying to walk the straight and narrow because we think we may be arrested, a case may be filed against us, and we don't have the means to fight those cases. That is the tragedy. Fortunately, there are some very public-spirited advocates in Delhi who offer to take up your case, but then they can't do it once too often. So what do? You self-censor, and I think that is the death of journalism. We cannot have free, fair journalism the way democracy demands that we should have it. We cannot have it in this particular regime, which is very sad. So this festival is for me a breath of fresh air. And of course, liberty also means responsible use of freedom, but I think we are educated enough. We walked this part of democracy for 70 years to know when we shouldn't harm anyone with our words. And I just thought I should write a few things about Goa. Goa, you are so many things to so many people. It depends what lenses you use. And I'm not talking about those Ray-Bans or those horrifyingly expensive shades which now define the moneyed class. And this is the crowd that throngs Goa with distorted images that they bring along with them. I know what they mean for courteous and therefore considered easy catch by those coming from repressed societies. I understand exactly what it means when people say, oh, you live in Goa, so it must be sand and beach and drinks and all that. As if people have no other work. They think the same about us. They think, we waste our time doing frivolous things. But these are perceptions we have to change. And I always challenge people. I challenge those who I hear, these sort of words coming out from. And I think we need to constantly challenge that through our writings, through what we speak in public functions like this. And I will not take up any more of your time because there's lots of entertainment still. So thank you very much for this great privilege. Thank you, Vivek. I owe you. Thank you. Thank you.
Dule? I just want Dule to. Guys, I cannot be more excited about what we are about to experience, okay? There is nothing like this anywhere. I cannot imagine that something like this could exist, and then I cannot imagine that we are going to experience it right here. At the beginning of the lockdown, which is obviously not so long ago, but it feels like eons. At the beginning of the lockdown, a day before the national lockdown was to begin, a young migrant worker, from a disadvantaged community, a young migrant worker got the idea. His name is Duleshwar Tandi. He got the idea that something like this could happen and fled home to his, traditional family home, very simple circumstances in the poorest district in the country. Many years when I researched it, it's the poorest district in the country. And so everyone was beaten down. You remember how difficult it was for all of us, right? Even living here in Miramar, I'm going on the beach every day. I felt very oppressed, right? But Duleshwar watched his brethren and in his village come back walking across thousands of miles. He got irritated, and he obviously had been playing with music a little bit, but he made a song which Pari Network put out on a video. They went and filmed him in Kalahandi, and he had this refrain which was, I did it for a month at home, but I'm not going to do it here. But he demanded from the government with tremendous swagger. One cannot imagine who this person is. How is he doing this? With tremendous swagger, jawab de, right? He was like, Sarkar, jawab de. So this went viral. It was amazing. I actually, for whatever reasons, I lived in New York at the time when originally hip-hop came out, and it was a New York City phenomenon. And here's Duleshwar Tandi from Kalahandi in Orissa making this amazing music. And since then I've followed him. I wrote about him. The top rappers in India paid attention and they focused on him. But he's been emerging and he's an irrepressible force. And when the idea of this festival came to mind, remember, this is the beginning of the lockdown. We're still kind of in the middle of the pandemic. The first person on my list was definitely Duleshwar Tandi, and I'm so happy he came. Okay, his name is rapper Dule Rocker, and he's about to make his debut. I'm going to invite Chandrahas Chowdhury, who's a dear friend and also from Odisha, to introduce. But first, big hand please, Dule Rocker. Ajay. I've been having WhatsApp chats with Duleshwar, and let me tell you, Dule is the most adorable guy in India. But anyway, here, please talk to him a little bit and maybe a question or something.
Okay. Huh? Okay. I have no status at all in art or music to do anything such as introducing Dule. I think the only reason why in an occasion like this, some relevance here is that we come from the same state. And I heard from somebody, I'm sorry if my history is a little bit weak for this part of the country. Odisha history I'm better, but today is Liberation Day, Statehood Day. And you know,
बहुत ज़्यादा इंग्लिश नहीं आता इसलिए जय भीम जय भीम जय भीम जय भीम जय भीम जय भीम सोच साफ सुथरा सोच लेके हाथ में कलम #1 इंसानियत ही धर्म मेरे नेक अल्फाज भर दे घाव जख्म बाबा साहेब का मरहम हमेशा कायम हाँ जिंदगी भर का तोहफा हमको मिला संविधान सबके लिए अधिकार छोटी बच्ची से किसान विदेश वाला यात्री बन के बैठते विमान कल झोपड़ियों में रहते आज कार्य मकान कभी सड़ा हुआ खाने वाले आज खरीदते पूरा दुकान जय 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 भीम काली थी रात काली काली घटा अंधेरों में खाली मेरा पेट खाली जय तीन मार मेरा भूख से चौक हुआ नहीं कभी थक के भी रुका नहीं आज भी वो जुनून वो जोश मेरे अंदर वो मंजर वो हादसा वो भयानक रास्ता और खूनी प्यासी रास्ता रास्ता नींद मेरे आंखों में थक चुके थे पैर टूट चुके थे ख्वाब अब मैं भी हूँ गैर जब गुर्बत में जीता था तो गुर्बत में कोई नहीं पर्वत सा बोझ था और सरबत में नींबू नहीं करता नहीं बात कोई देता नहीं साथ जब हमने ही किस्मत को कोसता में काम था उलझे हुए वक्त को सुलझाया पहेलियों से बिगड़े हुए जीवन को चमकाया हथेलियों से बदल दिए रास्ते हाथों के लकीर के खुददारी नाव जो लहरों को चीर दे बन गया वो शीशा जो पत्थर को तोड़ दे सुबह से उठ के मैं रैप थोड़ा खा लिया जो करते अच्छा काम दिल से उनको तालियां कभी नहीं भूला मेरे साथ देने वालों को मेरा भूली जो कष्ट मेरे हेटर्स की गालियां गटर वाला लौंडा बन गया कीचड़ वाला 5 स्टार बटर वाला ब्रेड ऑमलेट कतर वाले दोस्त यार फ्लो करता चेंज लेकिन बातचीत वही है सबके लिए शहर तक मचा रहा तबाही है इंटरनेशनल न्यूज पे सिर्फ तेरा भाई है सबको पता चल के डूले शब्दों का कसाई है तो आना गले थोड़ा मिलना जस्ट चिलना ऐसे मत हिलना फटी तेरी खान सुई धागा लेके सिलना चल इंकलाब जिंदाबाद भगत सिंह सुखदेव राजगुरु जिंदाबाद लॉन्ग लिव रिवॉल्यूशन जय भीम जय भीम would you like to say this जय भीम say this जय भीम जय भीम जय भीम woo welcome to मुझे जो भी बोलना होता है लिखना होता है मैं डायरेक्ट बोल देता हूँ इसलिए मेरे उड़ीसा में मेरे नाम पे बहुत कंट्रोवर्सी चल रहा है फिर भी मैं लिखता हूँ बोल देता हूँ तो मर्स लोग मर गए बोल के मतलब वो किसी को BMW मांगने नहीं गए थे किसी को सोना चांदी मांगने नहीं गए थे बस अपना थोड़ा सा ये मांगने गए थे कि हमको जो लिख के दे दो कि ये सही रहेगा हमारा गारंटी है आपका जो मिनिमम प्राइस और ऐसा बोल के उनको मतलब जान गंवाना पड़ा इस देश के लिए तो इस देश का फार्मर्स को सबको तहे दिल से शुक्रिया जिन्होंने अपना कुर्बानी देके हमको जिंदा रखा और उनके लिए ये मेरा नेक्स्ट गाना है बड़ी गड्डी माइक लेके भाषण ये सुनाएंगे भारी भरकम भीड़ लेके लूटने ये आएंगे खाने को नहीं चावल दाना बैंक में खाता खुलवाएंगे कीमत बढ़ती जा रही कब महंगाई घटाएंगे पढ़ाई का है बेरोजगार उसका कभी ना ध्यान देंगे खुद तो है ये पांचवी फेल पर ग्रेजुएट को ज्ञान देंगे किसान कर रहा आत्महत्या जानबूझ के चुप रहेंगे देश का पैसा जो लेके भागा उसको सिक्योरिटी देंगे नफरत जो फैलाता उनको पद्म पुरस्कार देंगे मूर्तियां बनाने को फिर बस्तियां हटाएंगे कुर्सियां बचाने को ये हाथ पार कर जाएंगे खुद ही करते अत्याचार खुद ही करते बलात्कार और सफेद करो के आड़ में ये खुद को नेता कहलाएंगे स्कूल कभी ना जाएंगे या हॉस्पिटल ना जाएंगे बस मंदिर मस्जिद कर करके लड़ाएंगे ये आपस में कटवाएंगे ये दंगे भी करवाएंगे हरकत जैसे लुटेरा संसद में मचाते शोर है भूख से बैठा गरीब पर ये खिलाते लेके मोर है पीते हैं शिकारी मेरे शेर कमजोर है क्यों 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 क्योंकि गली गली में यहाँ अपना नेता लोग ये चोर है चोर 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 स्विमिंग पूल में तैरने वालों पिज्जा बर्गर खाने वालों तुमको क्या पता ये भूख मरी क्या चीज है तुम्हारे लिए तो गाड़ी मोटर बंगला फ्रीज है पर हम तो रहते जंगल में ना ओडिशा के जंगलों में छत्तीसगढ़ के बस्तर में ना आंध्र प्रदेश तेलंगाना यूपी और बिहार में ना कश्मीर इज क्राइम एंड त्रिपुरा इज बर्निंग ना क्यों मंदिर मस्जिद करता है क्यों मंदिर मस्जिद करता है, क्यों मंदिर मस्जिद करता है, क्यों मंदिर मस्जिद करता है। कभी हॉस्पिटल भी आ जा घूमने, कभी स्कूल कॉलेज भी आ जा घूमने, क्यों मंदिर मस्जिद करता है, क्यों मंदिर मस्जिद करता है, मंदिर मस्जिद करता है, मंदिर मस्जिद करता है। कभी हॉस्पिटल भी आ जा घूमने, कभी स्कूल कॉलेज भी आ जा घूमने।
इसका बहुत कंट्रोवर्सी हो गया था, क्योंकि वो जो डायरेक्ट बोल दिया नेता लोग चोर है ये वो तो बहुत नेता लोग भड़क गए। अगले दिन मेरे घर पे अपने अपने BMW पे पहुंच गए थे वो लोग। तो अभी संविधान के ऊपर कुछ लिखा है मैंने, क्योंकि उसी से हमारा देश चल रहा है, हम सब उसको सम्मान कर रहे हैं। चेक चेक चेक, ये चल सकता है? हेलो हेलो, ये आ रहा है ना आवाज? ओके। प्रिय 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 इस बोला पर डुले रखा। Shit. Whoa. तुझे साउंड में प्रॉब्लम है। क्या औरत क्या साउंड में प्रॉब्लम है। पूरे सख्त खेत में कमाने वाले बहुत वो संविधान तुझे पानी पिलाया जिसने, बदन पे कपड़े पहनाया जिसने, सड़क पे चलना सिखाया जिसने, वो संविधान, वो संविधान। तुझे अधिकार दिया जिसने बोलने। ओके, आपका आवाज आ रहा है ना? शुक्रिया। मेरा संविधान मेरे लिए बहुत महान है, इस देश के लिए बहुत महान है। जिसको लिखा बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर ने, उसको फॉलो हम करते हैं। अधिकार दिया जिसने, बोलने का हक दिलाया जिसने, पढ़ा के नौकरी दिया जिसने, वो संविधान, वो संविधान। तुझे पानी पिलाया जिसने, बदन पे कपड़े पहनाया जिसने, सड़क पे चलना सिखाया जिसने, वो संविधान, वो संविधान। तुझे अधिकार दिया जिसने, बोलने का हक दिलाया जिसने, पढ़ा के नौकरी दिया जिसने, वो संविधान, वो संविधान। तुझे पानी पिलाया जिसने, बदन पे कपड़े पहनाया जिसने, सड़क पे चलना सिखाया जिसने, वो संविधान, वो संविधान। ये बात बहुत पुरानी, जब जिंदगी खुशहाल था, दिन में दिखता हरियाली और रात बेमिसाल था, मिलजुल कर सब आपस में भाई भाई, छोटे छोटे बच्चे उनके नन्हे मुन्ने छुई मुई, क्या औरत क्या पुरुष सब खेत में कमाने वाले, बहुत सारा वजन लेके पहाड़ों पे चढ़ने वाले, जंगली जानवर दौड़ा दौड़ा के शिकार करने वाले, मांस खाने वाले, पौष्टिक आहार खाने वाले। गुजर गए वो साल, कितने गुजर गए सदियां, सिंधु गोदावरी गवा और भी कितने नदियां, फिर मीलों दूर पहाड़ के पीछे दिखा काली बादल, छल कपट और हत्याओं से खून लथपथ आंचल, बलिदान ये वीर कितने बाकी फंस गए जात में, बेबसी और लाचारी में सर झुकाते साथ में, जो ना माने बात उनकी मार पड़ती किस्तों में, ना जाने वो दर्द दम तोड़ दिया कितनों ने, औरतों को घर पे बांधा सिखाया लाशरम, नेचर के पुजारियों को पकड़ा दिया धर्म, स्वर्ग नर्क का पाठ पढ़ा के नाम शूद्र शूद्र पे लटका मटका झाड़ू खुद के गले में रुद्र जिंदा जिंदा जलाने वाला सतीदाह प्रथा दिमाग अपना खोल और बोल के ये नहीं था माँ बाप से पूछ कितने खतरनाक वो दिन थे जब वो पानी लेने जाते कोसों दूरी फासला रखते उनके चोचले खत्म तभी अपनी बारी आते थे हाथ सफाई कर करके फैलाया झूठ है पुण्य का डर दिखा के खुलेआम लूट है जन्म मृत्यु पंजीकरण नई नवेली दुल्हन लेके 7 दिन तक शुद्धिकरण हो ये काला कानून तब से लेके अब तक है आते रहेंगे काला कानून चोर लुटेरे जब तक है टेलिंग द ट्रूथ तुझे अधिकार दिया जिसने बोलने का हक दिलाया जिसने पढ़ा के नौकरी दिया जिसने वो संविधान तुझे पानी पिलाया जिसने बदन पे कपड़े पहनाया जिसने सड़क पे चलना सिखाया जिसने वो संविधान वो संविधान वो संविधान वो संविधान brothers for life one world keep spreading the love शुक्रिया मुझे नहीं लगता आप लोगों को समझ में आ रहा है बोल के मेरा हिंदी भी खराब है आपको समझ में आ रहा है क्या शुक्रिया फिर तो अब लोग अपने अपने मन की बात सुना रहे हैं तो हमने भी खुद का मन की बात सुना दिया तो इस गाने का नाम है मन की बात चेक 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 थोड़ा बढ़ा दीजिए साउंड थोड़ा रॉक हम नहीं सुनेंगे मन की बात बंद करो ये मन की बात क्यों नहीं करते रोजगार पे बात क्यों नहीं करते किसान से बात गैस सिलेंडर 1000 का पेट्रोल हो गया 100 के पार हम नहीं सुनेंगे मन की बात बंद करो ये मन की बात क्यों नहीं करते रोजगार पे बात क्यों नहीं करते किसान से बात गैस सिलेंडर 1000 पेट्रोल हो गया 100 के पार हम नहीं सुनेंगे मन की बात बंद करो ये मन की बात हम नहीं सुनेंगे मन की बात अब कहाँ गया वो पाखंडी बोला था पेट्रोल 35 होगा खुद तो निकल गया सलवार पे जनता को पकड़ा है नकली योगा चमचा जब गजब के इनके कुत्ते भी भोगते अलग से हिंसा फैला के हड्डी उठाते कोरोना भगाने को थाली बजाते झूठ फैलाने को ये आगे आ जाते सच्चाई सुन के कान बंद कर लेते बोला था लाऊंगा काला धन कहाँ गया वो काला धन खुद का फंड का कोई हिसाब नहीं छापा मारने चले दूसरे का धन एक का पैसा मेहनत हमारा जिसको लेके भागा दोस्त तुम्हारा सबके सब ढोंगिए चोर लुटेरा जनता को फंसाते डाल के चारा लाल किला रेलवे एयरपोर्ट सब कुछ तो बेच बाच के खा गए हो फिर भी कुर्सी पे बैठे हो संभाला नहीं जा रहा तो रिजाइन दो संभाला नहीं जा रहा तो रिजाइन दो आजा कभी घूम ले हॉस्पिटल ब्लू कुछ पैसा जमीन पर बैठ की छोड़ो यहाँ लाइट तक नहीं डेवलपमेंट बस कागज पर कर आवास योजना फेल है सब तू गरीब को लूटने में धुरंधर जो नहीं दे पाता घूस का पैसा उसको तो कभी नहीं मिलता घर नियत में खोट बस सफेद है नोट दिखा के नोट तुम लूटते हो वोट करे अपना बना के फिर मारते हो चोट दलित का खून फिर लाल तेरा होता हम नहीं सुनेंगे मन की बात बंद करो ये मन की बात क्यों नहीं करते रोजगार पे बात क्यों नहीं करते किसान से बात गैस सिलेंडर 1000 पेट्रोल हो गया 100 के पार हम नहीं सुनेंगे मन की बात बंद करो ये मन की बात क्यों नहीं करते रोजगार पे बात क्यों नहीं करते किसान से बात गैस सिलेंडर 1000 पेट्रोल हो गया 100 के पार हम नहीं सुनेंगे मन की बात बंद करो ये मन की बात हम नहीं सुनेंगे मन की बात गलत को गलत बोलता हूं मैं अब माफ करना मेरा हर एक संग कंट्रोवर्शियल ही हो रहा है अब नियम कानून हमने बनाया हमने मतलब बाबा साहब को हम लोग बाप मानते हैं तो नियम कानून हमने बनाया अब लोग हमको नियम कानून सिखाते हैं उनको मालूम नहीं कि दूसरा नियम कानून ऐसा ढाप देंगे कि वो खुद दफन हो जाएंगे तो उसी पे कुछ रंग बदलने वाला, ओ झूठ का सत्ताधारी, नफरत फैलाने वाला, ओ खून चूसने वाला, ओ बैंक लूटने वाला, ओ भूखे नंगे मजदूरों को पैदल चलाने वाला। हमको नियम ना सिखा रे, हमको कानून ना सिखा रे, हमको नियम ना सिखा रे, हमको कानून ना सिखा रे। ओ संघर काटने वाला, ओ देश को बेचने वाला, ओ गरीब आदिवासियों की जमीन हड़पने वाला, हमको नियम ना सिखा रे, हमको कानून ना सिखा रे। मूर्ख थे क्या मूर्ख जो जंगल बचाया, धरती रखी हरियाली सबको खिलाया। नेचर को मारेगा तो तेरा नुकसान, तेरा नुकसान। मूर्ख थे क्या मूर्ख जो जंगल बचाया, धरती रखी हरियाली सबको खिलाया। वो मेरे वीर थे जो लड़े ना सिखाया, जीने का सबको सही रास्ता दिखाया। खाली नहीं जाने देंगे उनका बलिदान, उनका बलिदान। ओ धर्म का बीमारी, ओ खून का व्यापारी, ओ यूनिवर्सिटी पढ़ने वाले स्टूडेंट्स पे अत्याचारी। हमको नियम ना सिखा रे, हमको कानून ना सिखा रे, हमको नियम ना सिखा रे। तू चाहे हमको कानून ना सिखा रे, हमको नियम ना सिखा रे, हमको कानून ना सिखा रे, हमको नियम ना सिखा रे, हमको कानून ना सिखा रे।
Bre, 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 si buona Badule rock.
शुक्रिया सबको। ऐसा ही गाना बनाता रहता हूं मैं। मेरी माँ तब तक गाली नहीं देती जब तक वो समझ नहीं पाती। लोग जब उसको समझा देते हैं तेरा बेटा ऐसा ऐसा बोल रहा है, फिर झगड़ा हो जाता है घर में। ओके, अब मेरा देश कहाँ जाना चाहिए, कहाँ जा रहा है उसके ऊपर। मुझे एक्चुअली दिल से एक सच बात बोलूं, मुझे लगता है गोवा इज द बेस्ट। मतलब बहुत पढ़े लिखे लोग यहाँ पे हैं, बहुत ब्यूटीफुल, मतलब ऐसा लगा मेरे को। ऐसा पढ़े लिखे लोग, ऐसे खूबसूरत लोग, इंटेलिजेंट लोग खास करके नहीं है मेरे यहाँ, तो वहाँ पे मेरे को बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है। एक्चुअली गोवा इज द मोस्ट इंटेलिजेंट स्टेट ऑफ इंडिया, बिलीव मी। चेक साउंड थोड़ा बढ़ा दीजिए।
Rapper do the rocker, spitting fire. मेरा देश डूबा धर्म जात पात में, मेरा देश डूबा धर्म जात पात में, मेरा देश डूबा धर्म जात पात में। दिन में नकली समाज सेवा नंगा करते रात में। मेरा देश डूबा धर्म जात पात में, मेरा देश डूबा धर्म जात पात में, मेरा देश डूबा धर्म जात पात में। दिन में नकली समाज सेवा नंगा करते रात में। ये नेता लोग, इनके हाथ लाल खून से ये खाते गोश्त, इंसान को मार के दिखाते मोक्ष। झूठी विद्या से फिर ठिकाने होश, गिरते जाके स्वर्ग में जो है भी नहीं। हाँ, इनके मीठे मीठे बोल काम झोल नीचे हो सोल। जानबूझ के बनाते ये गिरने वाला ब्रिज पोल, तभी तो गरीब मरेगा, तभी तो बजट बढ़ेगा। ये टूटा हुआ जार में, भीगेला अंगार में, परेशान कर देने वाला टूटा इंजन कार मेरा। हंसी मेरा धूल में, ये ना तू भूल में, बेटी होती फूल में, जब घर में नहीं खाना बेटी कैसे जाए स्कूल में। पढ़े लिखे लोग, इनको मेरा सलाम है, शरीर इनका ठीक ठाक पर मानसिक गुलाम है। जादू दिखाने वाले को मानते भगवान है, साम दाम दंड भेद लूट खुले आम है। तू क्यों नहीं समझता, ये नेता करता दंगा, इसका कुछ नहीं जाता। इसने कभी अपनों को रोते नहीं देखा। हमसे पूछो क्या होता लॉकडाउन शॉटडाउन, हमसे पूछो क्या होता नोटबंदी डाउन डाउन, हमसे पूछो कैसा लगता सब घर में ना हो खाना, हमसे पूछो कैसा लगता सिर्फ पानी पी के सोना। नाम भर का इतना सारा योजना, जब भूख से मरता गरीब उसे खिलाने वाला कोई ना।
इसलिए सरकार को गाली देता हूँ।
मेरा मेरा देश डूबा धर्म जात पात में, मेरा देश डूबा धर्म जात पात में, मेरा देश डूबा धर्म जात पात में, दिन में नकली समाज सेवा नंगा करते रात में। मेरा देश डूबा धर्म जात पात में, मेरा देश डूबा धर्म जात पात में, मेरा देश डूबा धर्म जात पात में, दिन में नकली समाज सेवा नंगा करते रात में। ये नेता लोग
किसी को पसंद अगर नहीं आए तो सॉरी, लेकिन ऐसे ही मैं लिखता हूं। I think it's the last drill beat. Sound थोड़ा बढ़ा दीजिए।
हमने ना भूला वो दिन हो, हम कैसे प्यासा मरते थे, हमने ना भूला वो दिन हो, हम सिर झुका के चलते थे, हमने ना भूला वो दिन हो, तू लेता स्तन ढकने बेकर, हमने ना भूला वो दिन हो, दिखाता सांप वाला डर, हमको जख्म दिया हो, घोड़े भी बरसाया हो, जानवर से भी बदतर हो, अछूत बना दिया, सबका हिसाब होगा। बहुत हुआ रे तेरा जुल्म, अब तुझे इनकलाब मिलेगा।
भगत सिंह
बहुत हुआ रे तेरा जुल्म, अब तुझे इनकलाब मिलेगा। बहुत हुआ रे तेरा जुल्म, अब तुझे इनकलाब मिलेगा। बहुत हुआ रे तेरा जुल्म, अब तुझे इनकलाब मिलेगा।
जय भगत सिंह। ओ
को दिया है कैसा कैसा सजा, दलित बना के हमको पैरों में रौंदा है बेवजह। रोज होते कत्ल फिर भी रो ना पाते गुलाम, खूब लड़े वो मेरे वीर अम्बेडकर था जीने का नाम। खूनी दरिंदा तू, घिनौना का दिल तू, विज्ञान को कोसने वाला अनपढ़ और जाहिल तू, अब तेरा न्याय होगा। बहुत हुआ रे तेरा जुल्म, अब तुझे इनकलाब मिलेगा।
भगत सिंह।
बहुत हुआ रे तेरा जुल्म, अब तुझे इनकलाब मिलेगा। बहुत हुआ रे तेरा जुल्म, अब तुझे इनकलाब मिलेगा। बहुत हुआ रे तेरा जुल्म, अब तुझे इनकलाब मिलेगा। अब तुझे इनकलाब मिलेगा।
लॉन्ग लिव रिवॉल्यूशन। सबको शुक्रिया, इतने देर से मेरे को सुना आप लोगों ने। थैंक यू, थैंक यू। यू ऑल आर ब्यूटीफुल। आई लव यू। थैंक यू सो मच। थैंक यू। हो गया, हो गया। है नहीं, खत्म कर लूं? नहीं, सब बोर हो रहे हैं शायद। नहीं नहीं, मुझे किसी को बोर नहीं करना प्लीज। आपने मेरा सरकार जवाब दे कोई किसी ने सुना है? मैं आप सबको बता दूं, मैं और विवेक सर सब ट्विटर, इंस्टाग्राम, फेसबुक में हैं, तो आप सब के सब प्लीज जुड़िए हमारे साथ, प्लीज। ये मेरा रिक्वेस्ट है। ट्विटर, इंस्टाग्राम और फेसबुक पे हम हैं, तो हमारे साथ जुड़िए प्लीज। अच्छा लगेगा हमको आप सबसे बात करके। ओके, इज द लास्ट सॉन्ग। साउंड थोड़ा बढ़ा दीजिए।
जय भीम, जय भीम, मेरे खून के हर कतरे में अम्बेडकर। जय भीम, जय भीम, ये जातिवादी सोच रख देंगे चीर कर। जय भीम, जय भीम, मेरे वीरों के आशीर्वाद सीधे सर पर। जय भीम, जय भीम, इन कुत्तों को फाड़ देंगे शेर बन।
आप लोग मेरे साथ एक बार अगर जय भीम बोलेंगे तो बहुत अच्छा लगेगा, प्लीज। अभी नहीं, अभी नहीं, अभी नहीं।
जय भीम, मेरे खून के हर।
Okay, let's do this. Check, check. उड़ीसा से हूँ।
जय भीम, जय भीम, मेरे खून के हर कतरे में अम्बेडकर। जय भीम, जय भीम, ये जातिवादी सोच रख देंगे चीर कर। जय भीम, जय भीम, मेरे वीरों के आशीर्वाद सीधे सर पर। जय भीम, जय भीम, इन कुत्तों को फाड़ देंगे शेर बनकर। जय भीम, जय भीम, मेरे खून के हर कतरे में अम्बेडकर। जय भीम, जय भीम, ये जातिवादी सोच रख देंगे चीर कर। जय भीम, जय भीम, मेरे वीरों के आशीर्वाद सीधे सर पर। जय भीम, जय भीम, इन कुत्तों को फाड़ देंगे शेर बनकर। एक रोज नहीं हर रोज की बात ये, जब होता था अत्याचार, दर्द जुल्म दुख कष्ट जो देता वो कहलाता इज्जतदार। मर मर के सब जीते थे, जहाँ हंसी खुशी ना होता था। यहाँ प्यासे को पानी, भूखे को खाना, मरने के बाद ही तो मिलता था। झुकना पड़ेगा चाहे कुछ भी कर, हर एक दलित पे जातिवाद का डर। तब शेर लिया जन्म इस धरती पर, ऐसा मेरे वीर बाबा अम्बेडकर। थोड़ा बहुत खा के भूख मिटाया, पढ़ पढ़ के अपनी रात कटाया। टांग आया सब दे गुलाम, वो एक था लड़ता वैसे तो शाम रोज ही ढलता। पर एक दलित कभी ना बोल पाता, अगर बाबा साहेब ने जन्म लिया ना होता। मान ले ये बात इतिहास बना के, धुलता ना पाप कभी डुबकी लगा के। सबके लिए हक दिया, सबको अधिकार, कभी तो लड़कियां भी दौड़ती है पर्दा हटा के। गरीबों को लूट के तू नेता मत बन, दलितों को रूला के तू ऊंचा मत बन। इस धरती में आया है तू इंसान बन, तालिबानी मत बन। तू बाबा साहेब बन, जिन्होंने उठाया कलम फिर जान कुर्बान। दुनिया को जीत लिया पढ़ के विज्ञान, लिख डाला इस देश का संविधान। सबसे है प्यारा मेरा भारत महान। जय भीम, रैपर डुले रॉक, वन 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 वन।
शुक्रिया, शुक्रिया, शुक्रिया। थैंक यू सो मच, थैंक यू सो मच। आप सब बहुत अच्छे हो। आप लोगों के बीच आके मेरे को बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है, कसम से बहुत अच्छा लगा मेरे को आप सबसे मिलकर। थैंक यू सो मच।
Dule Rocker. Amazing. Dule sang that amazing song about Bhagat Singh. Earlier today we launched, is Ikroop in the house? Is Ikroop here? Ikroop? Ikroop is not here. Ikroop just launched a beautiful graphic biography of Bhagat Singh. Sort of lovely resonance. We're going to take a break for 5 to 10 minutes while the band comes on. There are some snacks. There's free kombucha. Take 10 minutes and then we'll come back and they're going to play for over an hour, so you'll want to keep your seats. Just a reminder, the blue seats in the front are for the delegates. Everyone else, please make yourselves comfortable.